If there is an episode that I would do with one founder is to talk about another founder. And most definitely Michael Lebor can be that topic. Should we talk about him and insurance gig or should we talk about Semsee?
I think he would want us to talk about Semsee.
Yeah, I think he will because that's
Yeah,
he's he's such a
he's
good
that.
heart. He will go like,
He's a
don't talk about
good-hearted
that.
guy.
He's very
No,
he
no,
will
no,
not
no. That's
talk
right.
about
No,
Semsee.
I'm
Don't
good.
talk about. So how about we'll start talking about UNC or fly fishing?
Absolutely. So I am a tremendous fan of the University of North Carolina, or as others call it, the University of National Champions. So I was born in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are Haitian, but somehow I ended up going to school in the South at the University of North Carolina, and I loved every second of it. And so even today, I sit on a couple of boards at the university, and there isn't a basketball game that, or even football game, but mostly basketball game that I don't that I miss. In fact, at my house,
Mm-hmm.
whenever North Carolina plays Duke, as my wife
Oh,
calls it, it's a holy day of obligation. So nobody
gotcha.
can bother me. I need the room to myself. Anything sharp has to be moved, and so I'm a big fan. And then when I'm not doing that, I am fly fishing with buddies. Not every day or every week, but we go every year or so to Montana, and we spend almost a week there fly fishing and go karting and doing cool boy stuff, I guess. And then on other weekends, I go snowboarding. And what's exciting is
Huh.
my 6-year-old daughter. I started getting her on the mountain this year, and so I'm hoping she continues to like it, and we can have fun with it. Especially since her mom has no interest in breaking any kind of bones, and is much happier at home sipping expensive coffee or hot cocoa.
Oh, let's not go to the coffee part, man. I'm sure it will open the coffee topic. I can give you my whole spiel about it. It will be hours of, mostly cringing about the hipster movement and all those super sour, super acidic,
Oh,
pour over BS. But you know, let's not snowboarding. Okay,
snowboarding.
yeah. Which mountain? Bear Mountain or
So
Hunter?
good question. So this year we spent a lot of time at Wyndham
Hmm.
in the Catskills, and then we did spend a couple of times we went to Hunter, and then there's another one close to us in the Catskills called Bel Air. So that one I've been to, but my daughter and I went to Wyndham and to Hunter. But I've actually also snowboarded, believe it or not, in Jackson Hole, as well as in Colorado and at Snowbird, a couple places in Park City. And it is much different snowing in upstate New York and Vermont versus those places. So it's been quite fun. And knocking on wood, the only thing I've ever broken was a helmet.
I'm sorry. You broke a helmet.
I broke
Okay.
a helmet, and
How
it's
did
not
that
funny.
happen?
Because
Was
I
it
was
on
not
your
even on a
head?
very
I
steep
hope.
hill. It was on my head, and
Okay.
I felt very awkwardly. And when I got to the bottom, I was literally cracked.
So first of
And
all,
I
I'm
felt the wind. I felt the air in my not very long hair, and I just thought I was in heaven. But no, luckily I was not really in heaven and survived it.
so remember, kids, put your helmet on. So first of all, I'm
Put your
happy.
helmet on.
So first of all, I'm very happy to hear it's the helmet and not your head. So
Right. Thank you.
that's great. And wow, no, seriously, wow, it's
Yeah.
yeah, put your helmet on. Uh,
Yeah, there's not a day in the world. Sometimes I even put it on walking the streets of New York.
Yeah, I can see that. But again, I'm walking here, right? It's like, come on, you need
Yeah,
to stop. Unlike here in
that's
Los
right.
Angeles, that they will what? Oh, I think that I hit a person. 2 points. But okay, so making jokes and jokes aside, and after all, people who want to know about insurance and hitting people and liability, and now it's underwriting and risk. How did you end up in insurance?
Good question. So I am a sucker for building technology and working at companies who are trying to build technology to help agents. And so I started 20 something years ago in the travel space. with a company called Site 59, and we were bought by Travelocity, and we built the Travelocity Partner Network, which is our Travelocity distribution network. And then I spent some time at a publishing company when the publishing industry was in disarray, trying to build up technology and a business for them at a company called Guideposts. And then, I switched over to real estate, which I love real estate. I think it's a fascinating industry
Mm-hmm.
on a number of different levels, and was with a company called Smarter Agent, where the Blumberg brothers built a really cool search and discovery app, and we turned it into a private label business for large franchisees, and agents, right? As a foil to the Trulia, the Zillows of the world, and that ended up selling to Keller Williams. And I was working with another friend, building a background check business and selling that off when the folks at DE Shaw and Nafila were thinking about a technology platform for the P&C space for commercial insurance agents. And that was really intriguing to me because it wasn't to try to replace them. It wasn't to try to, disintermediate them, but it was a way to enable them. And I'm just a sucker for hard businesses. I'm a sucker for businesses that actually are about people who are trying to then
Mm-hmm.
sell to other people. I'm not a B2C guy, not a direct to consumer guy. I love building, platforms and technology that helps you do your job better. And this was really intriguing. And also, it seemed really hard. And so that was a terrific combination. And so between the fact that it was technology, really hard, but I would still have to deal with Main Street America type business owners, right? These insurance principals are your Main Street America, business owners. Every town's got one.
Yep.
Every town's got a doctor, a lawyer, a real estate agent, and the insurance person. And so I thought that was a really interesting opportunity on a number of different levels.
So now we should actually talk about Semsee, right? So if you don't mind, give a little bit of background or a description of what Semsee is. What are you selling? What have
Sure.
you been building in the past
Yeah.
few years?
And my guess is you've got some really educated, smart viewers and listeners, right? And so they're probably saying,
Of
well,
course.
Semsee, that sounds familiar. Well, it is a play on the word Semsee, SEMCI, single entry multiple carrier interface. And one night I woke up 2 a.m, not drunk, and realized, you know what? Part of what we do is really Semsee. So why not have a play on words with SEMCI and just replace the CI with the SEE? Because ultimately, what we want to do is we want to help the independent agent see everything. We want them to come to Semsee to figure out when there's a risk in their hands, how to classify it. We then want to help them understand who's got appetite for it. And then when we help them do that, we want to help them connect to the carriers they want to connect to be able to get a quote back. And then we want to help them compare that quote so they can make the best decision for that risk. But it doesn't stop there. We also want to be a platform that carriers, instead of sort of this scattershot approach to getting risk and marketing and what have you, they can have a platform that they can essentially influence and figure out where's risk coming from it. How do I get to the risks that I want when I want it, versus hoping and praying that, maybe because I took a couple of agencies out for pizza last week, they're going to send me more business.
I don't have a follow-up question about the pizza beside if it was mushrooms or pepperoni. And how do you
Hmm.
think it's split between, if there is more tendency towards pepperoni, or as you grow in life it will be more of a parachute or something like
It's
that?
interesting. I'm more of a high-low guy. So I like my pizza half regular, nothing on it, and the
Hmm.
other half, or with a little bit of pepperoni, and the other half, a little bit of truffle mushrooms.
Well, truffles, mushrooms, truffles, or mushrooms and
Truffles.
truffle oil?
Mussels with truffle oil.
Yeah, because just truffles, my friend, you don't need to work anymore. If that's your
No.
go-to pizza and black
Yeah.
truffles directly from northern Italy, you're in a good
Yes.
shape.
Yeah, well, I have to say again, that was one excursion, but I'm also very lucky. My wife is incredibly cool. and she's the one who probably foot the bill for that.
That's well, I think that there is a say that who you marry is the most important financial decision that you'll make.
Yeah, it was a terrific spiritual, financial, and existential decision.
And honey, I love you. That was 2 points. And now let's go back to the podcast. And yeah, most definitely, I'm going to keep this in the episode and not going to cut it out. So let's go back to Semsee. When did
Sure.
you start the company?
So the company was founded in mid 2017. So we officially sort of got our office and started working in August of 2017.
How many customers? If you can
So
talk about it.
today we've got, oh, absolutely. So we do share some things, although I don't share everything yet. But we've got about 1,500 agencies on our platform, and we're working with about 40 carriers. And that will continue to grow as we add agencies and networks and also people private label our product as well. So that's been a really interesting, fun ride. And then more and more carriers are coming to us, and not because they think I'm a nice person or because they, not just because the technology is really great. It's really because what we've bet on is that if agents really love the product, the carriers will have to come. And that's what we have found. We've really focused on making the best, absolute best product for the agent and their experience. And if they start to use it more and more, become reliant on it, may be a strong word. Maybe it's more hopeful for me to say that. But as they do so, the carriers will realize that this is a platform they need to be on in order to continue to be in front of the agent. The key, though, is it's not a bait and switch, because ultimately by them being on the platform, the goal is for it to be in a more efficient way for them to get risk from these agents.
Yep. So what was the gap? It's a usually when you think only about technology, right? There was a problem, there is a solution. Hey, see my product. Now, for us, especially when we look at it, it doesn't matter if it's a B2C or B2B, and in this case, it's a B2B. Actually, yeah, it's a B2B to empower them to do the D.
That's right.
What was the pain point that, or why agents love your solution so much?
It's a great question. The initial pain point and the crux of it, and it again goes back to the name, is agents really want a solution, especially in the commercial space. We only work in commercial, where they can, in minutes, not hours or days, get multiple quotes from multiple carriers without having to rekey or re-enter the same information over and over again. That is the core of the problem. Now, by solving that problem, what it does is also unlocks some really interesting opportunities. For example, it unlocks the fact that all that activity creates data that we then can give back to the agent to help them better sell, right? But it also unlocks opportunity for us to work with carriers and show them how things like their pricing or their coverages might be able to be better. Ultimately, both of those things makes the product even better for the end consumer, the 31 million plus small business owners in the US. And so for us, the problem is really acute. But what's fascinating is it allows us to sort of attack a lot of different opportunities that aren't problems per se, but opportunities to make the industry better.
Well, I would define them as problems or frictions in the work of the agent, especially the quoting, because every agent, if it's an indie agent by himself, a producer on a bigger agency, and most of the listeners to this podcast are usually carriers, startups, investors, people less on the agent's part or individual agents. And in my understanding, everything that you can make them more efficient will make them happy. At the end of the day, it's their business. They want to close the next deal. And if you can shorten that sales cycle, you're a winner.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And what I think has been an underpinning on this is, agents, in my opinion, have been making bad technology look good for a long time. And
Interesting.
I think they are craving for technology. Doesn't mean that it's not hard to change your workflow that you've been doing for 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Hmm.
But they've been doing this workflow on not great technology.
No,
And they make it work. And so if you could provide them with a technology that actually does work and is pleasant to work with, that I think adds, I think, a lot to what you're suggesting.
but what technology do they have? Who is buying their technology? Are they buying it to themselves? Do they have budget to buy it? At the end of the day, they will need to go, okay, I have an AMS, it's a Vertafore or a Applied or whatever that may be. They may get all kinds of marketing tools that they may or may not, use them. And that's it. The
Hmm.
carriers will not invest in the independent, even in their captive or
Yeah.
exclusive. They are not going to give them too many tools because they don't know and cannot control. The question of the ROI is such a big question there that
Yeah.
they are already rolling the cost of the marketing expense on the agent. So now they're
Right.
going also to give them a tech.
Well, it's a good question, right? And I think what we have found and what I found in just talking to agents is, yes, they spend a lot on AMS, and we could probably do several weeks worth of podcasts around AMSs.
Cool.
But they are spending money on, I think, maybe secretly, on things like places that help them understand their data. Not everyone, but there's some of that. They're starting to spend money on things like a CRM or a
Hmm.
VoIP system. And so there are all these small, disparate, and unfortunately not interconnected pieces of technology that they're buying piecemeal to solve slivers of problems or to sort of make something efficient. They're not buying them and sort of aggregating them, or at least interconnecting them to make their entire workflow more efficient. That's how I think about it. Here's the other thing that I think that these
Before
agents do.
that, here's another
Yeah,
shout out to Michael Lebor, so he will, yeah. So we show him our love.
absolutely. And this is why you need an insurance gig in order to connect all these things together, right? And
The
so
workflows. It's
um,
all about the
it's
workflows.
all about the workflows. I think that's right. So hopefully Michael Lebor will take us out both for a drink. Um, that would be fun. The other thing I would say, by the way, is that these agents, I have seen so many homegrown things to solve problems. And that's not talked about, that's not in somebody's budget. But almost every agency I go to, they've created some kind of Google sheet to do this or that. They've used Docs, they've used Excel. So it's not technology per se, but it is using the tools that you have to essentially do what technology could or should have done for you. And so I think that's an important element that people don't talk about because it's not something you're buying.
Hmm.
And then the last thing I would say is this: if there wasn't opportunity and or money and a need for this, I don't think Salesforce would be investing as much as they are into insurance, and they are
Oh, they invest so much. I would
so
say,
much.
yeah, they're investing. You have carriers with centers of excellence that is dedicated to Salesforce. They've managed to do an amazing job to penetrate into the insurance industry. It's
Right,
remarkable. But
for
from
sure.
what I've seen, it's in the career level, and I'm not sure how much it managed. No, percolating is going up, so how much it cascaded down and reached the
Yep.
agencies or the small agencies. We've seen clusters. Actually, also the agencies, networks, and the clusters, they don't really have, let's call it love. But big brokers do. They have the budget to handle a Salesforce cost and license. Yeah.
No, I think that's right. Now, I do think that there are a number of networks that we have seen, and some whom we work with, who've also built their own, infrastructure on the back end of some of the things that we've talked about. And I think that's going to make a big difference going forward. Because I think one of the things that I have found fascinating about the insurance industry that the insurance industry can learn from travel and real estate and other agent focused
Hmm.
industries is the fact that I think insurance does a better job of protecting and owning its own data. Now, I don't think insurance does a great job of having data flow where it needs to go, when it needs to go, efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
But the ownership of it, I think is key. And I think there's some other things that the insurance industry could do to make that better. But ultimately, I think that what that's going to do, it's going to empower, I think, going forward, using technology, the agents, small, large, and networks and things of that nature, to be able to better manage their book of business and do provide better service and yet make more money.
Okay. Whatever you can improve efficiency, reduce cost, increase the pie, provide them actually some sort of a business intelligence based on
Yes.
their own data, and maybe the area not really competitors, but something that they can actually leverage or become smarter. Hey, that's a win.
That's an absolute win. And I think this is where, I think we are going, part of where we're going with Semsee is, as these companies are leveraging and understanding their data, we become an execution layer for them to be able to manage that data and in a way that's better for their customer and that's better for their bottom line. And that's really the interconnectedness that I see going forward in the industry.
So, and please tell me if you don't want to answer this. So, how do you work with the Vertaforce? Because basically, we have like two gorillas that
Yeah.
control the market. Are you in competition? Are you let's call it another layer in the stack? Because we've seen that every time there was a new AMS that made a little bit of traction, they bought them out.
Yes. Yeah, first let me say it won't be easy to buy us out or me out, because we're not in it to sort of a quick sale. We want to build a great, valuable company. We do not work officially or with the big two, as you would say, and we're absolutely open to it because our agents want us to. One of the two or three biggest questions agents ask us is, how can you connect to my AMS so it can make the whole streamline flow
Mm-hmm.
more efficient? And we're absolute game for that. I think, however, the folks that you've mentioned, there's some hesitancy there. That I think that hesitancy is based on sort of maybe business model. That hesitancy may be based on technology. But I think that there's some hesitancy, both historical and even current day. But we think that it's going to be important for the industry, for the data that is in theory owned by the agent, to be able to flow where it needs to flow so that the agent can be better. And at the end of the day, if the agent is better and selling more, upselling more, cross-selling more, that's good for the small business owner. They're better protected. It's better for the carriers. You've increased the pie. And it's better for all the vendors, such as these AMSs, because now there's more money in the pocket of these agents to be able to afford your not very, let's call it, cheap product.
If there is something that I really like about the insurance industry, that there are competitors, but you always partner up with your competitors. You
Yeah,
will, if you're an insurance company, I think it's in the DNA of the industry, because you share risk, but not just about you share risk. If of course, if you're looking at Lloyd's Act of how much risk each syndicate can actually take, it's also embedded in the DNA here in the US and everywhere else. So if you have the lead but you don't write it, you will send that to someone else. You bundle
right,
insurance and different products that can come from different carriers. The concept that my competitor is my worst enemy is not there.
right.
My competitor can be also my partner. And I love the fact that it's not just about the insurance product, also in technology, because there is always something to be done there.
Yes.
And from there, it's always a question, okay, how do we leverage it? So, in a very awkward segue, I will ask you, you've been operational for since 17, so 5 years, if I know to do basic arithmetics. What's the plan for the future?
Well, I think for us, it's twofold. there are a number of features and functionality that we think will make our product more powerful for our users and for the agents, much of which they're asking for. And that's, again, continue to build opportunities to help them place business more efficiently, easier and faster, right? And I think it starts from, again, how do you classify to figure out where to go and then sending it off. But I do think, and we very much believe in partnering. We very much believe in not having to build everything. We want to be an expert in a particular lead to quote scenario, okay, and then to get a bind. That doesn't mean we need to build our own CRM. It doesn't mean we need to build our own AMS. We've talked about that. It doesn't mean that if there are some data providers who can make our form that much easier and faster and helpful both to the agent and the carrier to get data that's good, rich data to be able to more accurately provide a quote, it doesn't mean we shouldn't and won't, and we are doing that, connect with them. And so I think the future is both really focusing in, at least for Semsee, what are the things that are core to what we are, who we are, and what we do for the agent and then for the carrier? And then what are the things that are important, adjacent elements that we can partner with the right tech providers, vendors, carriers, agencies, whomever, AMSs, in order to sort of make the entire thing sing much more harmoniously.
What's the size of the team now?
So the team is about 40.
40 people. That's impressive. That's big. The majority tech or a combination of all?
It's a combination of all. We do probably have more of our folks on the product and technology side. We're very much product technology first.
Who is backing you?
So we are initially funded by D.E. Shaw and Nafila, and now which is now Markel, and we recently added O1 Advisors, which is a VC out of San Francisco, who were founded, by the CEO of Twitter and the COO of Twitter, Adam Bain, and Dick Costello.
And you recently raised another round?
Series B. Yeah. We did. We just announced raising a Series B.
How much was it? I'm not asking what's the valuation, but you didn't announce. Okay.
We did not announce that. No, don't be sorry. I know it's not the custom, but we want to focus on the story of what we're going to do and what we're going to build versus people doing mental gymnastics to understand what the number means.
Oh yeah, I know. That's why. Hey, that was a prep for the gymnastics, right?
That's right. So for all of those of you out there who love gymnastics, as much as I love gymnastics, I'd rather we focus on where we're going.
Well, I tell you what. Seriously, do you like gymnastics? I thought that from Haiti it means that you're one of us. You like football, soccer.
Oh, I like football, but I mean, gymnastics is kind of incredible.
Yeah, no, that's the closest that we can have for Superman and I don't know, whatever superhero that you want. Like they heard about gravity, so that's the only thing. Yeah. It's like, no,
it's incredible. But I mean, now if you give me a terrific 2-1 football or soccer match, depending on where you're from in the world, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, we can call it football, and then it will be like in between.
There's probably a sport called football somewhere.
Oh, there is actually. Basically, that's in Portuguese, but you'll have also the one that it's sort of how you call that? It's like volleyball, but you can only use kicks on your head. Oh, and of course the chess.
Oh, yes, I think I have seen that. And what's fascinating is there's probably an association for that sport.
Oh, there is.
And that association probably had to create a.
There is a
and
league.
Who underwrites it? This is an insurance podcast, and then who underwrites it, right?
Ooh. I don't know. I'll check with my connection in Rio de Janeiro. I'm sure that someone from Sao Paulo is already like Zurich, Brazil is already like. That's on us.
One of our big partners, they're an agency. They're based out of Connecticut, and they underwrite the knockerball associations across the country.
I'm sorry, what?
And so knockerball
What's
is
that?
this thing where you enter this plastic bubble
Uh-huh.
and you knock each other
Oh,
off on it. And there's associations all over the country, and they created a program for it. So we laugh, but the programs exist for almost anything.
listen, if there is risk, someone will underwrite it.
Yes.
It can be sport, it can be almost everything. It's like, someone will do it. Someone will figure it out, and it's so important because otherwise, shit can happen.
And unfortunately, shit does happen.
Yes, it does. But I wonder now, because of what's going on in the Ukraine, startups will start to take a new coverage of war, especially based on the location of their developers. There are so many startups.
There's a lot. It's a good question.
Because there are so many startups that they have huge, well, in quantity of engineers in the Ukraine who are now like, shit, we can do anything.
Yeah. It's a fascinating point. I mean, we've thought about it not because we have developers in Ukraine, but we actually do have a handful that we have operated with this really interesting company in the Dominican Republic of all places. And in that scenario, you have to think about electricity, you have to think about hurricanes and other things of that nature. And so, yeah, I think your point is incredibly well taken, right? As dynamic and as wonderful as for all of us as humans across the world to be relatively interconnected and have commerce across it, it does create additional risk because any sort of small incident in one part of the world inherently has impact here at home.
That's actually a great question because it's not business disruption, although it sounds like it. It's not supply chain because it sort of falls under R&D. I don't know. I need to post that as a question to the public. So if anyone knows,
I don't know if you might not be posing it as a question. You might be creating a program right here on this podcast. I just want to make sure I get a little bit of a cut, and you can find it on Semsee, by the way.
Fantastic, and that's where you shop for a developer interruption or R&D
developer interruption.
R&D interruption.
Yeah,
something that.
Yes, keyboard interruption.
Yeah, internet, and later on we'll have other things. Okay, I think that we bullshit enough. So, because we already passed the 30 minutes in, let's wrap it up, and I'll ask you the question that I'm asking everyone. Please, give us a recommendation. It can be a book, a TV show, a life hack, whatever that may be.
So, I actually came prepared for this.
Good job.
So, I sent this to all the folks on our team. It's called "The Obstacle Is the Way," and I was a philosophy major. I got a master's in philosophy of religion, and the Stoics were always interesting to me. And this book is sort of a modern take on Stoicism, which is really about how to focus in on achieving things, even if there's an obstacle, make the obstacle the way so that you can confront it. And so I'm fascinated by this book. It's sort of, I guess, on a number of bestsellers now, and a number of different folks are using it. And so we're sharing that. And I think it's a really fascinating, it's a short read. It's not a big read. So that's one recommendation. Depending on my mood, I can give you recommendations on music. But I've been really listening to Krugerbaum and Leon Bridges a lot lately. I think the combination of their music is fascinating. And then the third category is TV. Part of what I like is I feel like I'm living my life with two different shows in mind. One with Ozark, which is this unbelievable cold pragmatism that I really appreciate and admire. And on the other hand, the optimism of a Ted Lasso. And so I feel like I'm walking that fine line between an optimism of Ted Lasso and this unbelievable sort of maybe dangerous, but certainly sort of cold pragmatism of Ozark.
That's such a polar view on things. Wow, no, it's a
Yeah,
well, Ozark. If you have a Mexican cartel on you, yeah, no, that's a motivator. I
that's a motivator.
would not wish it to anyone. But the Ted
No,
Lasso, yeah, that first season, second season, he was less optimistic. But also
he
they
was a
gave,
little. I mean, reality started to hit.
yeah, but
Reality started
second
to hit.
season they were like more about how can we share more, develop the
Yeah,
characters of all the other characters and show them that, give them around what that yeah, basically turn them
a little
to
bit more
round
depth.
a character and not just they are a sidekick to his jokes and
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
it's interesting.
Mhm.
That could be an interesting poll. What TV show or series,
Mhm.
maybe even famous musical act, had a better second album or second season than the first season?
Interesting. Well, I can tell you that the remake of How I Met Your Mother or How I Make Your Husband Father, not as funny, but
Not so good.
nah, not so good. Nah, in my opinion. But
Okay.
it is what it is. Anyway,
It is what it is. I have to say, The Wire was probably better seasons 3 and 4 than maybe seasons 1. That's the closest I can come to.
man, I'm sorry, I haven't seen The Wire.
Then I think you are missing out on one of the greatest TV shows that ever existed.
I'll put it in the queue. It will need to go
Please do.
somewhere towards Q3 2023. But yeah, we'll get back. We'll get it. We'll one day finally. I'll see that.
When you create the program for the Ukrainian developers and you've sold it off,
Oh man,
that's
it's
when
so
you can
sad,
do it.
especially nowadays. Who knows? By the
It's
time
awful.
that this episode will air, I hope things will calm down. But it's hard to tell. It's very hard to tell.
Absolutely. Well, my heart goes out for the Ukrainian people, for sure.
Yeah. And with this somber thoughts and a little bit of, and hopefully a little bit of optimism, Philip, thank you very, very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure
Thank you,
having you.
Gilad. The pleasure was all mine.